Hello everyone, this is going to be episode 10 of Econ on Instagram part 2. My camera woman left, so I'm going to pick off and I'm going to film myself attacking the board. This feels like a Call of Duty episode. So we have right here, our terms, the terms that I connected. Everyone's concept maps are going to look different, but we should be able to explain the connections and the links between these terms, right? So we have diminishing marginal product. I think I was in the middle of explaining diminishing marginal product. We said that it's a short-run phenomenon. We get a short-run production function if we hold one input in the factor of production fixed and the other input is variable. And diminishing marginal product, we should expect it to eventually kick in. It doesn't have to kick in right away. And that will yield diminishing marginal returns, etc. So that term marginal is significant. I think I've told you that trick. Think about that term additional twice. The additional product from an additional unit of labor or additional hour of labor might be in different terms. When you walk away from AP microeconomics, you better know what that term marginal means because we use it a lot. Okay, so we experience diminishing marginal product. It's connected to diminishing marginal returns. We can also, I suppose, connect it to fixed input, right? Drawing these connections and is one thing, but being able to explain them will be another thing. Let's see if any other terms I can get rid of. So we have variable input. Let's also talk about short-run cost curves or short-run cost functions. I don't think I included this term. Okay, we're going to draw it on this word map. And let's see. I think in the previous video, you all saw Angel's ATC curve, AVC curve, and marginal cost curve. He made his little concept map out of the short-run cost model that we've developed. Very impressive. Then I'm actually going to link the marginal cost to a fixed input. And actually, I don't know necessarily. That's kind of like tenuous, but you could tell a story, right? You can draw a link between marginal cost and maybe diminishing marginal returns or diminishing marginal product. I'm going to draw it between diminishing marginal returns and diminishing marginal product, right? Your marginal cost is not going to be constant in a short-run production function because we hold one input in the factor of production fixed. Your marginal cost is actually going to, we should expect it to increase because of diminishing marginal product, right? We can explain those connections that were in our concept map. So I'm going to cross out marginal costs, average variable costs, average total costs. Fixed costs and variable costs, we can maybe connect it here, right? I'm just going to put FC for fixed costs and variable costs because that's the sum of these. Well, actually, ATC is the sum of average fixed costs and average variable costs, but you can kind of see the connections. Average variable costs is just obviously average variable costs. We can draw a connection between these, right? So maybe somehow show that these two terms sort of link up, the AVC and actually FC specifically, right? Let's see, what are other terms that I can use? If we have just variable inputs in a production function, then we can end up with a long-run supply curve. Sorry, for some reason my phone's really zoomed in. And then the long-run cost curves that we would expect. I'll draw it up here, right? This is kind of getting messy. We can talk about economies of scale. So that's the part at which the economies of scale, that's the part at which the long run average total cost curve is downward sloping. Diseconomies of scale is the part in which the long run average cost curve is upward sloping. And you can get economies of scale because of this phenomenon called increasing returns to scale, which is also, these are all long run features, right? Unique to the long run. Increasing returns to scale describes a scenario in which if you double inputs, then you would more than double outputs. Decreasing returns to scale would be the opposite of that, and constant returns to scale would be an increase in inputs would be met by a proportional increase in output. You don't necessarily have to get economies of scale because of increasing returns to scale. Increasing returns to scale describes the relationship between, or returns to scale describes the relationship between input and output, and economies of scale or diseconomies of scale describes the relationship between output and costs. But certainly you can get economies of scale with increasing returns to scale. Maybe if I had the term specialization, I would link it to with these terms as well. Okay, so this is my very messy concept map. And then this is the other part of the, I suppose, assignment, was that you wanted to explain 4 terms. And so we said in our class, an explanation is going to be a description, which is a definition or a list of characteristics, and then relating that idea / concept to a larger content or larger context, another idea or example. And so right here, this is how I explain diminishing marginal returns. So in black, you can see the description part in this explanation, which is necessary but not sufficient for it to be an explanation. So we see diminishing marginal returns, and then I say short run. And then you can see right here, I put, it's a good rule of thumb to define your economics vocabulary, just so the AP grader knows that you know what those terms mean. Probably don't need to define all those vocabulary words, but go ahead and just define them. So you make sure you get those points. So in the short run, that's a scenario in which one factor of production is fixed. Short run situation where additional gains in output will eventually diminish. That's the definition. So it's a good description of diminishing marginal returns. And then an explanation of diminishing marginal returns would relate diminishing marginal returns to another concept. So why not, or maybe even a bigger context, but why not relate diminishing marginal returns to diminishing marginal returns to a term that we connected it with in our concept map. So diminishing marginal product, which is exactly what I do here. Diminishing marginal returns happens because if you hold capital fixed at some point, you should expect diminishing marginal product of labor, and then I describe what that is.